Ethan Reed sat at the control panel of the small transport ship, watching the stars streak past as they moved farther from Jaren 7. The planet had disappeared from view, leaving only a memory of smoke, fear, and chains. Lyra, the small lavender-skinned alien girl, sat beside him, still trembling slightly from the ordeal. Her gold eyes were wide, staring at the control panels as though she could see the entire galaxy laid out before her. Ethan knew that the real challenge was only beginning. Hundreds of alien lives now depended on him. The communication network Lyra had activated had already begun to ping with messages from distant hideouts, abandoned colonies, and secret shelters. Each message carried a quiet desperation. "We need help. Someone must save us." Ethan's chest tightened at the thought of so many lives hanging by a thread. They traveled to the first location Lyra had suggested, a small moon that orbited a gas giant on the edge of the Jaren system. Here, scattered alien families had managed to survive by living underground, avoiding corporate patrols and sharing whispers of hope. As the ship touched down quietly, Ethan felt the weight of the eyes upon him. Lyra had told them he was coming, and when the group saw him step out, a mixture of fear and relief spread across their faces. Lyra stepped forward, speaking softly to her people. "He saved me. He can help you too." The leader of the small colony, an older alien named Varek, studied Ethan closely. His skin was pale green, with scars from years of labor and escapes. "You are human," he said cautiously, "and yet you came for a child. Why?" Ethan met Varek's gaze steadily. "Because someone had to, and because I believe that no one should be forced to live in chains. I will help you all, but I need your trust," the group murmured among themselves. Trust was not easily given after years of betrayal, slavery, and exploitation. But Lyra's presence, her unwavering faith, seemed to tilt the scales. Slowly, Varek nodded. "Then we will trust you, for her sake." Over the next few days, Ethan and Lyra organized the colony. They created schedules for food distribution, safe patrol routes, and hidden signal points to communicate with other scattered groups. Ethan applied his military experience to train the aliens in basic self-defense, but he emphasized strategy and intelligence over violence. He wanted them to survive, not to seek revenge. As they worked, Ethan began to understand more about Lyra's culture. She explained their rituals, their ideas of family, and the importance of community. Humans often saw family as just a social unit, she told him, but for her people it was a promise. Protection, loyalty, and the passing on of knowledge. It was clear why they had called him father already. He had shown all of those qualities without intending to. One evening, as the twin moons of the planet rose over the horizon, Ethan and Lyra sat on a ridge overlooking the colony. Hundreds of lights dotted the underground tunnels, each one representing a life they were protecting. "Do you really think we can save all of them?" Lyra asked quietly. Ethan looked out at the vastness of space, feeling the immense responsibility. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I know we have to try. If we do nothing, they have no chance. If we act, we give them hope." The next step was riskier. The mining corporation would not forget Lyra, and they would hunt her relentlessly. Ethan realized that he needed to strike preemptively, to disrupt the company's operations before they could capture more slaves. He planned a careful strike, a series of sabotage missions aimed at disabling supply routes, freeing captives, and creating confusion. Lyra volunteered to lead a small team. She knew the factories, the patrol patterns, and the secret paths through the city. Ethan gave her his support, standing beside her as she organized the mission. The aliens were nervous but determined. They had seen hope through Ethan's courage, and they wanted to act. The first mission was tense. Lyra's team infiltrated a small slave compound, using hidden tunnels and clever distractions. They freed over 30 aliens without raising an alarm. Ethan monitored their progress from a remote console, giving advice, hacking doors, and disabling security systems. By the time the corporation realized what had happened, the captives were already safe in hidden transport shuttles, guided to new settlements. Word of their actions spread quickly. Aliens from other sectors began contacting Ethan and Lyra, offering information, supplies, and safe havens. The network grew faster than Ethan had imagined. Each night he received dozens of messages. "He saved me. He saved my family. He is our father." The words were repeated hundreds of times, not just as a title, but as a declaration of trust and hope. The corporation, meanwhile, was furious. They sent advanced mercenaries, hunters who had never failed a mission, to track down Lyra and Ethan. But the duo was always one step ahead. Using strategy, intelligence, and the support of the liberated aliens, they created false trails, sabotaged tracking devices, and built safe houses across the galaxy. Every time the corporation closed in, they found empty corridors and freed captives in waiting. Months passed. Ethan became more than a protector, he became a symbol. Aliens across the systems began to rally, not for war, but for safety and freedom. They called themselves the Children of Lyra, honoring the girl he had first rescued. Ethan, though humble, felt the full weight of the title father. It was not just a role. It was a responsibility to hundreds of lives, each one depending on his courage and wisdom. One day, the corporation made a final move. They discovered the location of a large settlement where hundreds of rescued aliens had gathered. The mercenary fleet approached swiftly, armed with the latest technology and weapons designed to crush any resistance. Ethan knew that a direct confrontation would be disastrous, but he refused to let fear dictate his actions. He devised a clever plan. Instead of fighting head-on, they created decoys, false signals, and traps designed to confuse the attackers. Lyra led small groups to free any remaining captives, while Ethan coordinated the defense from a hidden control center. They used the terrain, the tunnels, and the support of other alien networks to outsmart the corporate fleet. The confrontation lasted through the night, with explosions, alarms, and tense moments that tested Ethan's leadership. Every move was calculated, every decision carried the weight of hundreds of lives, but by dawn, the mercenaries had been forced to retreat, unable to penetrate the defenses or capture a single alien. Ethan and Lyra had succeeded without unnecessary loss of life. When the battle ended, the aliens of the settlement gathered around Ethan. Hundreds of voices called out in unison, their words clear, simple, and powerful. "Father, you are our father." The sound echoed across the settlement, reverberating through the tunnels and reaching distant allies via communication channels. Ethan stood before them, humbled. He had acted to save one alien girl, and through that one act of courage he had become the protector of hundreds. Lyra stood at his side, her eyes shining with pride and gratitude. The network of rescued aliens stretched across the galaxy, connected by hope, trust, and the courage of a single human who refused to ignore injustice. Ethan looked at the gathering, feeling the enormity of what they had accomplished. "We are not just survivors," he said. "We are a family, and a family protects each other." For the first time in his life, Ethan felt the true meaning of that word. Family was not defined by blood or species, but by loyalty, courage, and the willingness to act when others could not. He realized that the galaxy was full of darkness, but there would always be light where people like him and Lyra stood together to protect the helpless. The aliens cheered, their voices blending into a chorus of gratitude and hope. Ethan smiled faintly, placing a hand on Lyra's shoulder. "We have a long journey ahead," he said, "but I will not fail. None of you will ever be alone again." That night, under the twin moons of the peaceful moon settlement, hundreds of aliens slept safely, for the first time, without fear of capture. And in the quiet of the control room, Ethan gazed at the stars, thinking of all the systems yet to reach, all the lives yet to protect, and the journey that had begun with saving one small girl. He knew the galaxy would always be dangerous, but now he had a purpose greater than himself. He was not just a human wandering among stars. He was a father, a protector, and a symbol of hope for those who had never known freedom. And as long as he could breathe, no alien under his watch would ever face the chains of slavery again. The story of one act of courage had grown into a movement. One night, one decision, one rescue had echoed across hundreds of lives. And Ethan Reed, a man who had simply chosen to help when it mattered most, would forever be remembered as the human who became the father to hundreds of aliens, and a light in the galaxy that would never be extinguished. The delivery hub smelled of metal and burnt circuits, and the constant hum of conveyor belts filled the large hall. Workers shouted over the noise, coordinating shipments from one section to another. Among the crates and containers, one unusually large package stood out. It was sleek, wrapped in a translucent protective material, and clearly labeled "Handle with extreme care, biological specimen." The workers glanced at it curiously, but the automated sorting system directed it to a small human settlement on the outskirts of the mining colony. No one noticed that the coordinates were slightly off. Inside the package, Lyra stirred. Her body was tall and elegant, with slender limbs and delicate features that glowed faintly in the dim light. She had been trained to be calm, poised and aware, but being shipped in a box across the galaxy was not part of her plan. Her bright eyes scanned the environment, taking in the hum of machines and the occasional flash of human movement. She had been bred and trained for a very specific life, but now she found herself somewhere completely unknown. Hours later, the crate landed with a soft thud in front of a modest house in the human settlement. A man opened the door, wiping sweat from his brow. He looked surprised at the large crate, glancing down at the label, then at his small son Ethan, who was sitting in a specially designed chair by the window. "Dad, what is that?" Ethan asked, his voice small but curious. He had bright eyes full of intelligence and warmth, but his legs did not work properly. He relied on his chair to move around, and he had grown used to people treating him differently. Daniel, Ethan's father, frowned at the crate. He had lived a hard life on the mining colony, raising his son alone after his wife had died many years ago. He had no time for strange surprises, and now this crate seemed like a puzzle he didn't want to solve. Still, he approached carefully, using a small cutter to open the crate. As the lid lifted, Lyra rose smoothly, her movements graceful and controlled. She looked around, taking in the small house, the human man, and the boy. Her eyes were wide with cautious curiosity, and for a moment Daniel felt a strange mixture of awe and concern. You are not supposed to be here," Daniel said, his voice steady but wary. He did not want to offend, but he needed answers. Lyra tilted her head slightly, her voice soft but melodic. I'm here by mistake. This is not where I am supposed to be." Her words were careful, precise, as if choosing each one to avoid confusion. Ethan's eyes lit up. "You're not angry? You're not scared?" he asked. Most people stared at him with pity, but Lyra's calmness surprised him. She moved closer to his chair and crouched slightly to meet his eyes at his level. "I am cautious, not afraid," she said. "And you are different." "You do not fear me," Ethan smiled shyly. He had spent his life adapting to challenges that most humans would find overwhelming. He had learned that curiosity and bravery often mattered more than strength. Lyra's words felt like a bridge between his world and hers. Daniel stepped back slightly, unsure how to react. "She's an alien," he explained to Ethan, "and she doesn't belong here. We have to figure out what to do." Lyra listened quietly, but her attention remained on Ethan. She could sense his intelligence, his resilience, and something else, an openness to understanding that was rare even among humans. She reached into a small compartment in her outfit and produced a tiny device that projected a holographic map of the galaxy. Ethan's eyes widened as he watched the colors and shapes float in the air. "What is that?" he asked, fascinated. "This is how I travel," Lyra said. "This is my world far from here." For the first time since arriving, Lyra felt a spark of connection. Ethan did not recoil or question her worth. He simply observed and asked thoughtful questions. He was different, just like her. Days passed, and the initial shock of Lyra's arrival faded into a cautious routine. She stayed mostly with Daniel and Ethan, learning to understand human habits. She found the settlement rough and unpolished compared to the elegance of her homeworld, but there was a simplicity and resilience here that she admired. Daniel, meanwhile, grew increasingly protective of her presence. The other colonists stared, whispered, and asked questions, but he kept a careful eye on Lyra, not wanting anyone to harm her or his son. Ethan and Lyra began spending time together, quietly exploring the small area around the house. Lyra introduced him to simple alien devices and tools. Together they experimented, building small machines, testing gadgets, and learning from each other. For Ethan, who had always relied on others for help, this was exhilarating. He felt empowered by her guidance and began imagining possibilities beyond his physical limitations. One afternoon, Lyra showed Ethan a small device that could assist him in walking short distances. It was not perfect, but it gave him the sense of independence he had never experienced. He stumbled, laughed, and tried again, while Lyra's calm guidance kept him confident. "You are brave," she said softly, watching him push forward. "Many would give up," Ethan grinned. "I never give up," he said. "Not when there's something worth trying." Daniel watched from the doorway, silently moved. For years he had worried about his son's future, about the hardships he would face. Seeing Lyra's gentle encouragement and Ethan's determination gave him hope he had not felt in a long time. But not everything was calm. Rumors spread through the settlement about the alien in Daniel's house. Some colonists were curious, others fearful. They questioned Daniel's judgment and whispered about alien influence. The tension grew, making life uncomfortable for all three of them. Daniel tried to shield Ethan, tried to maintain normalcy, but the world outside their small house was not easy to ignore. Then came the storm. It arrived without warning, darkening the sky and whipping the dusty landscape with violent winds. Daniel's concern turned to panic when he saw Ethan's chair tipping over in the chaos. He ran through the storm, shouting for his son, but the winds tore at his clothes and his strength began to fail him. Lyra acted instantly. Using strength and agility far beyond human norms, she raced through the storm, reached Ethan and stabilized the chair. With careful hands, she lifted him and navigated the treacherous terrain back to safety. Daniel, exhausted and fearful, followed, feeling a mixture of relief and awe. Once inside the house, Lyra gently set Ethan down and checked him over. He was unharmed, laughing despite the fear that had gripped him moments before. "You saved me," he said, his eyes wide with admiration. "I protected you," Lyra said simply. "Because you are brave, and bravery deserves protection." Daniel looked at Lyra, finally seeing her for who she was, not just an alien or a mistake, but a being of courage, intelligence, and compassion. The storm had tested them all, and she had proven herself indispensable. In the days that followed, the bond between Lyra and Ethan deepened. She helped him discover strengths he had never known, guided him in small projects, and listened to his thoughts with patience and understanding. For Ethan, she was more than a friend. She was a mentor, a protector, and the first person to see him as capable rather than fragile. The colony slowly began to notice the change. Lyra's presence, once a source of suspicion, now became a symbol of ingenuity and courage. People whispered less and observed more. When minor problems arose, such as malfunctioning equipment or resource shortages, Lyra applied her alien knowledge to find solutions, earning reluctant respect from even the most skeptical colonists. Despite this, Daniel remained cautious. He knew that Lyra had been sent from a distant world and that her presence could bring complications. But watching Ethan laugh freely, attempt tasks he had never dared before, and look up to Lyra with trust, Daniel realized that some things were worth the risk. As the sun set over the dusty plains, Lyra, Ethan, and Daniel sat quietly outside the house. The twin moons began to rise, casting a soft glow over the settlement. Ethan leaned against Lyra, exhausted but happy, while Daniel observed them both, a sense of peace settling over him. For Lyra, this strange, harsh world had begun to feel less like a prison and more like an unexpected home. She had come by mistake, but in Ethan's laughter, in Daniel's quiet approval, she discovered something she had never expected: connection, purpose, and the fragile yet enduring beauty of human resilience. The first chapter of their lives together was only beginning, and already, everything had changed.